After 5 sometimes dramatic weeks, Donald Trump's hush money trial is nearing an end. Closing arguments got underway this morning. The prosecution and defense get their last chances to win over the jury of 7 men and 5 women. The CBC's Kris Reyes is outside the courthouse in New York. So, Kris, what has happened in court so far today?
Hey, Andrew, all of this happening in the courthouse right behind me on the 15th floor. And what we're really hearing in closing arguments is a summary of 5 weeks of trial in which more than 20 witnesses were called to the stand. And we're going to hear a full day of closing arguments from both sides. And then what I'm going to do for you is sum that up in the next 2 minutes. Right now, we're hearing from the prosecution's Joshua Steinglass, who opened his closing arguments by telling the jury that this case at its core is about a conspiracy and a cover-up to corrupt the 2016 election. It's no surprise that he is starting with this, Andrew, because you know what he's really trying to do with closing arguments is bring it back to the charges. This case isn't about Trump's alleged sexual affairs. This case isn't even really about hush money payments. What this case is about is falsifying business records for the purpose of covering up a crime. And that crime, according to the prosecution, is to affect the 2016 elections. And the reason for falsifying those business records is to hide those hush money payments, and that those hush money payments were instead entered into the formal ledgers, so the business records of Trump's organization, as legal payments when they really were not legal payments. And he is reminding this jury of that. He's also talking about the credibility of David Pecker's testimony. This was the first witness called to the stand, the former publisher of the National Enquirer. And Pecker testified on the stand that there was this meeting between Donald Trump and Michael Cohen right before the 2016 vote to talk about how they can catch and kill damaging stories that could possibly affect the outcome of the election. So Steinglass telling the jury that David Pecker would have no reason to lie on the stand. Now, before we heard from the prosecution's closing arguments, we heard from Trump's defense team. Todd Blanche, who is his lead attorney, spoke for more than 2.5 hours. And really, the defense's goal in their closing arguments is to dismantle the prosecution's case, because it is the prosecution that has the burden of proof here. And they really focused on their star witness, Michael Cohen. And in every which way that you could describe a liar, that's what they did when describing Michael Cohen. Todd Blanche calling him an MVP of liars, the greatest liar of all time. The message he was trying to deliver in his closing arguments is that if the prosecution is hanging their entire case on Trump's former fixer and lawyer, that they're in trouble. And of course, we're not really going to know who the jury believes until we get that verdict.
And so, Kris, what have you seen outside the courthouse?
You know, as we've seen in the last 5 weeks, Andrew, there are often 2 scenes playing out during this trial. The one that I just described happening inside the courthouse, and the one happening outside the courthouse, which we are a part of, by the way. There is dozens of journalists from around the world covering this case. There is a park right across the street from the courthouse full of protesters, full of those who support Donald Trump. And then we've had some big names come to the park, including today. So we have had the biggest contingent from Trump's family attend the court today. And we heard from both his sons, Eric and Don Jr. They spoke outside of the courthouse just after lunch today, defending their father. Have a listen to what Eric Trump had to say.
I'm just proud of the toughest person I've ever met in my entire life for having the backbone and fortitude to go through this whole mess, as uncomfortable as it's been. And I'm proud to have stood there every single second by his side in that freezing cold courtroom against unthinkable odds and a corrupt judge and people making a lot of money and this political witch hunt. He's an inspiration to me every single day, and he'll be vindicated.
You know, Andrew, it's really a massive reminder that we are in the throes of election season, because it has felt like a campaign stop here outside of the courthouse. And in addition to hearing from Trump's team and supporters, we also heard from a group supporting President Biden, led by the actor Robert De Niro, who recently voiced one of Biden's campaign ads. Have a listen to what De Niro had to say outside of the courthouse.
I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave.
You know, Andrew, we're watching history in real time, and you can certainly feel that being here on the ground covering this story. Just so we can answer what's next after closing arguments, Justice Juan Merchan will give instructions to this jury that will last for about an hour. He'll talk about the legalities of this case. He'll explain the law to the jury. What exactly is Donald Trump charged with, and what laws did he break? So once he does that, then the jury goes into deliberation, and they will be in a room by themselves with as much time as they want to come up with this verdict. And it will have to be unanimous if they're going to make a decision to either acquit or convict Donald Trump. If even just one juror decides that they can't make a decision either way, it will be a hung jury. This entire country is holding their breath for their decision.
Kris, thank you. That is the CBC's Kris Reyes live in New York.